Welcome to 100 Songs That Define Heavy Metal. I'm your host, Brian Slagel. I am the CEO of Metal Blade Records, and we're going to talk about a band who has spent almost their entire career at Metal Blade Records, including this record, A Pleasant Shade of Grey by Fates Warning. This is an album of one song. It's broken a bit of parts, but it's basically one song, which is pretty amazing. Also came out in 1997, which is kind of not the best time for heavy metal, but this record really went a long way into kind of helping the genre get back to where it needed to be and back where it is today. Everybody that we're going to talk to today had something to do with this record. Producer engineer Bill Metoyer, who worked on the demos and is also on the record, which we'll talk about that. And of course, lead singer and my old friend, Mr. Ray Alder. It's going to be a lot of fun, but we begin with the only person on this podcast that wasn't involved in this record, Mr. Martin Popoff, to lead us off.
Fates Warning, A Pleasant Shade of Grey. Interesting choice here, Brian. Is this the longest song ever to show up on a Metal Blade album? 53 minutes? Actually, 54 minutes. We used to always talk about how Edge of Sanity's Crimson was a single song, 40 minutes long. But is this a single song? Because it's got 12 parts. It's called Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, all throughout sort of thing. So yeah, so this is issued April 22nd, 1997. So it's the band's 8th album, produced by Terry Brown. I think he gets kind of just a regular production here. There's nothing much exciting to talk about in terms of the production. It's just a very correct, very good, high fidelity production. Looking at this record, what I love about this song or this record is that it has been rated very highly by the fans. I looked up some ratings. We've got some 1s, some 2s. There was a 4 out of 10. There was a 10 out of 12. But generally speaking, this is a very well-regarded Fates Warning album. Of course, written by Jim Matheos, put together in a couple weeks at the usual place. We've got Joey Vera on bass, but more importantly for the soundscape of this album, we've got Kevin Moore on keyboards. The genius Kevin Moore, from one of my favorite prog bands of all time, OSI and Chroma Key. Of course, he was in Dream Theater at one point too, briefly. His presence is instantly felt when we get to part 2. And then as we go throughout this record, I mean, it's a record of a lot of dynamics. There's a lot of mellow parts with electric guitar, clean electric guitar, and then heavy parts. And of course, with Mark Zonder there, you're getting a lot of, complicated sort of time signatures and rhythms, across kind of a slow space as well. But this is considered one of the band's darker albums. It definitely does have sort of a unified mood throughout the things. I mean, they could have given everything song titles, I suppose, but no, this is cool. It's a neat concept, A Pleasant Shade of Grey, with nice typography on the front, nice album cover as well. But yeah, a well-regarded album by probably the number one band who carried on the torch from Rush in terms of this idea of progressive metal. But yeah, Ray Alder singing amazing on this as well. Bunch of different gears for him, which is kind of cool also. But generally speaking, yeah, there's kind of a mood that's kept throughout the whole thing. There's nothing that really leaps out at you as a super commercial song. Nothing has gotten a way bigger pile of Spotify plays over any of the other songs on here. Part 11, I suppose, is a little more up-tempo, but really, generally speaking, this deserves to be called one song, as you have here. So yeah, great album and loved by the bass. Fates Warning, A Pleasant Shade of Grey.
Yeah, and to Martin's point, I remember when we were discussing this record, and Jim, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, a lot today. But Jim wanted to do a one album song, which I was like, fine, let's do it. We just broke it up because we needed to promote it. We did try to get some radio play and try to get those things. So I think that was one of the reasons why we kind of broke it up in these different parts. Otherwise, it really is just one long song, and it was kind of broken up for some of those reasons. But yeah, great stuff, and always thanks to Martin. The next time you're in Las Vegas, or if you currently live in Las Vegas or the Las Vegas area, you need to visit the Metal Blade Museum. Now, not only are there artifacts from Metal Blade artists like Metallica, Slayer, Cannibal Corpse, Gwar, Lizzie Borden, there's also artifacts from bands that we had something to do with as well, like Guns N' Roses, Megadeth, Alice in Chains, Deep Purple, Thin Lizzy, Alice Cooper, all sorts of stuff. So it's a really great metal museum. It's located right near the Strip in Las Vegas. Also, our retail store is also now in the museum. So you can go pick up your Metal Blade vinyl, CDs, collectibles, shirts, all sorts of cool stuff. Just go to metalblade.com/museum for all the details. Alrighty, so we bring back our old friend, the legendary Mr. Bill Metoyer, who of course had quite a bit of things to do with this particular record. Not only are you on the album, but you had a lot to do with the production and the engineering and all sorts of things. So give us your entire involvement with Fates Warning at Pleasant Shade of Grey.
Well, first of all, are we talking about the album of Pleasant Shade of Grey or the song?
Well, it's one song. So we're talking about the whole album because it is one song. It's broken down into many parts, but it's one singular song.
I understand.
And, I've mentioned it before already on the podcast, but, Matthias kind of came to me and telling me what he's thinking about the next record. I said, I think I want to do a one song record, a full record about one song, which, their songs were getting along anyway. And I thought that's a great idea, especially, when this record came out in the late 90s, when basically metal's dead. So do whatever you want, do it. So it's one entire song.
Yes, it is amazing. I got to tell you that this is probably my favorite Fates Warning album, at least the Ray era. When it came to my contributions, I was just doing mainly the demos at the time. So I wasn't around when they actually went into the studio and recorded it. And now that I think about it, it's amazing what they did back then. There was no Pro Tools. Some of the stuff we did on ADATs, but I'm pretty sure they had to transfer the ADAT sounds onto a 2-inch machine. And if you're running at 30 IPS, you only get 15 minutes out of each reel of tape. So just think about what they had to do to put everything together. It had to be mind-blowing. How come you didn't send me to the Carriage House to watch them record this, damn it?
Probably money.
Oh, yeah. Probably had a lot to do with it.
Was it in the budget, sir? Sorry. Yeah, and of course, produced by the great Terry Brown, which it's one of those weird things where, when you're in the business doing things and all of a sudden you're working with these legendary people that you've idolized for, your whole life, because he did all those incredible Rush albums. Then you're actually working with the guy who's the nicest, sweetest guy ever, too. So it was a lot of fun. I don't think I ever went up there for any of this. I was there a lot for Parallels up in Toronto, but I don't think I ever went up for any of this record either in the studio. I just kind of let them do their thing.
Well, what really pisses me off about this album is how great it even sounds on your phone. I went back and I was listening and I'm just like,
it's such a great record.
Everything about
and
it's
such a unique, Fates Warning is a unique band anyway. And, they were always doing different things. So I love this. Of course, I remember the one big question we had back then was okay, Jim, do whatever you want, make a one song record. That's fine. But just for radio purposes, for college radio and all these other things, can we break it up into different parts so we can use them? And I think initially he might have been a little reticent for that, but I think he also recognized that we have to market the record somehow. And we could take a piece out of it. It just kind of worked out that we did all the different parts, but it's still amazing because it is, if you just sit down and listen to it, it's one song. There's not really the breaks aren't really. It was kind of difficult, and I can't remember even who put together the different breaks. I'm sure it must have been Jim, but the different breaks of okay, this is going to be part 1, and this is going to be part 2 and part 3, because it's not. There's a few parts where it does make sense, where it's a transitional thing that goes into something else, but a lot of times it's just one long deal.
Like I said, I wish I was around more at the end to see how they put it all together. One of the other reasons why it's probably my favorite is the guys on the record, they were all my best friends, incredible musicians. Zonder with the bed of the drums, if you listen to his drumming, is incredible.
Yeah.
You had Mr. Joey Vera, one of my dearest friends, Jim Matheos, and then that guy, what's that singer's name?
We're going to talk to him in a minute, Mr. Ray Alder.
That Ray Alder guy, yeah, I love Ray, and I think, man, if you listen to the vocals on this album, they're just spot on every little friggin' note. He's probably the biggest reason why I do love this album so much, and the reason why it's probably my favorite. The guy's vocal is incredible on this.
Yeah, he really kind of, I mean, he'd been in the band for a while, obviously, at this point. And again, I think that I don't think I know that, when they made Parallels, we all kind of thought that was going to be the big Fates Warning record. And unfortunately, Parallels and Symbol Salvation by Armored Saint are two records that I believe if they came out in 1989 as opposed to 90 or 91, they would have been massive hits. But they came out right in the middle of the grunge thing when nobody wanted to hear about it. I remember even promoting those records was difficult because, well, heavy metal's out, we're not going to play it, and radio stations would play none of it, and it was definitely a difficult thing. So by this point, you're just like, screw it, just do whatever you want. And, I remember have conversations with Jim. It's like, do whatever you want. I don't care. It's like, it's 19, again, this record came out in 1997, which is really insane because that was probably the darkest year of all of metal, where a lot of people said it's completely dead and it's never going to come back. And I remember having those conversations, and I was like, well, the underground is still good. Like for us in the 90s, we had, a lot of heavier stuff like Cannibal Corpse and 6 Feet Under. But we had, King Diamond and Merciful Fate and Guar, and all these bands did really well, but it was all so underground that nobody really cared. And for Fates Warning, it was kind of, they were kind of around, but not kind of around. And so again, I think it's that freedom that they had just to, especially for Jim, I'm just going to do whatever I want to do. And it worked. It always works, I think, when bands, we're just going to make a record that we want to make. We don't care about anything else. We don't care about production. We don't care about hit songs, what anybody thinks. We're just going to make it. And that's usually the best music.
I'm curious as to what is your favorite Fates Warning album, if you don't mind me asking.
That's very difficult to say. I mean, I do love this record, and this is my favorite of the Ray era for sure. But I go back and forth between Guardian and I guess Guardian, but I don't know. I mean, I love all those early John Arch records. They're all so good.
Guardian's my favorite from his era, and one I got to really work on. When it comes to Apsog, besides doing the early demo stuff, I did get my little my voice on.
Yes, give us the background for that.
All that happened was I needed to talk to Mark Zonder for some reason, and just as I had decided to call him, my son, who was very young at the time, started crying. So I picked him up, put him on my shoulder, and he was just kind of whining a little bit, and I called Mark, just got his answering machine, and pretty much as soon as that beep happened, my kid just started bawling his friggin' eyes out and yelling, and I lost all train of thought, didn't remember what the hell I was calling Mark about, and all I could think about doing is fuck my life right now. And so what did I say? I said, Mark, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to find a gun and just shoot me! Shoot me! And I had no clue that was going to end up on the album. It was kind of brilliant the way they put that in.
It's a classic moment. And it's perfect because it kind of everything slows down to being very quiet, so you can definitely hear you screaming.
Yeah, and yeah, that's the other thing about this album that blows me away is the way it ends. You think the damn thing is over, and there's like all this blank space, and then all of a sudden an alarm clock goes off. I mean, that's just brilliant. Love that part. That's my second favorite part besides my part in this album.
It's especially cool because we were still doing barely doing any vinyl at that point, so it was kind of just all CDs. And
yeah,
I don't know how many people. I mean, there's people always put little things like that at the end of records here and there, but I wonder how many people didn't even listen to the end of it to see when that came on. But yeah. It was fun. I don't think we could have done it on the vinyl because we wouldn't have. When we did do vinyl on this, we obviously had to do double albums and stuff because it was so long.
Exactly. But love this album.
But yeah, it's a classic stuff. Also, I was warbling between Guardian and Spectre Within because I do I love the production of Spectre Within. That's one of the few records that I produce. Well, you and I produce basically that I just love the way it sounds. And I like Guardian, but there's some certain things I would change about Guardian. But we're Capitol Records and all that nonsense. But
yeah,
but I still both insanely classic records.
Yeah, the thing about Guardians, I just love every song off of that. And it is hard for me to go back and listen to anything that I did. And that's definitely one that I can take. I don't mind
Yeah,
listening
there's
to
I go back and listen to it. I'll tell you, one of the bands that I remember in the studio is a nightmare to deal with to some degree, but I think the records still sound amazing. Those Omen records, man, they sound good. And Steve, the drummer, was a bit of a pain, but good God, he was a good drummer. Those drums actually sound really good.
Yeah. Again, in the studio, just working with friends. And a lot of times that's not a good thing, you know. Friends don't tend to listen to you when you when you try to correct them or say something. But yeah, Kenny Powell is still one of my dearest friends. I mean, he was my roommate for a while, you know. So yeah.
No, he's brilliant. Those early Omen records are absolute classics. But yeah, but this one was pretty insane, and I was really happy when the record came out because again, it's 97, and we just nobody really knows what's going to happen or what's going on, and the reception was really good. And I love the fact that all these years later, it's still considered this kind of landmark album of progressive metal, where it's a whole album and they're doing all these different things. And they've gone out and they've done it live many times, which is awesome because it's so much fun to see that whole thing live. And I remember telling the band early on, like, at some point you guys have to go do this all like live. And they're like, I don't know if we could really do that. And it's a whole show. I go, I just do it. It's so good. But the reception's always been so good. And it's, obviously done extremely well over all these years and still sounds incredible today.
Shout out to Mr. Kenny Powell.
Sure. Yes. Omen. If you guys don't know Omen, please go check out the early Omen stuff. Really, really great early 80s LA metal. And yeah, Kenny Powell was a genius, or is a genius still, I guess.
He's still kicking.
I love it. Well, thanks again, my friend, for doing this. Always a pleasure, and I'm sure we'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay, thanks for having me again, Brian.
Hey everyone, Brian Slagel here, founder of Metal Blade Records. I spent my whole entire life trying to make metal history and make metal better and promote metal as much as I can. And now there's a brand new way for you to test your metal knowledge and relive those iconic moments. It's called Metal Mondays, the official metal trivia game from Metal Blade and Pantheon Media, and it's free to play right now. Every Monday, a new game drops. From Slayer, Supremacy to Death, Metal 101, 80s, Metal Blade Classics, and tons more. You'll battle it out on the leaderboards, win killer prizes, and even score some exclusive Metal Blade merch. So if you think you know your riffs, your legends, and your deep cuts, prove it. Download Hit Replay on the App Store or Google Play, or head to metalbladerecords.com/Metal Mondays and start playing today. Because in metal, there's no off days. Only Metal Mondays. Metal Mondays. Play loud, play true, and play to win. All right, now we welcome in my old friend, the singer from Fate's Warning, Mr. Ray Alder. How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you, Brian?
I'm all right.
Good to talk to you again. It's been a while.
Good to see you. It's part of the fun of doing the podcast. I get to see my friends that I might not have seen for a minute or two. So it's always good.
Yeah.
So A Pleasant Shade of Gray. I picked this for a few reasons why it's a very important song. Number one, it's a whole album, which is not the norm. There's a few, but not very many are one whole album. I remember Jim came to me and said, I think the next album's going to be one song. I'm like, all right, that kind of makes sense. These songs keep getting longer anyway, so why not? It also came out in 1997, which was kind of the darkest days of metal, really, when it was kind of a lot of people were wondering if it was going to continue on or not continue on. And so this is an important record that came out and did extremely well and kind of helped slowly turn the tide of metal kind of slowly coming back. When Jim first told you about the fact that this is going to be a one-song album, what were your thoughts?
Well, I think basically, I'll answer that, but basically I think it came about because a bit of frustration as far as we had the Parallels album, which was, I think, our biggest selling album to date. And then there was Inside Out afterwards. And it just didn't have the same response. And as far as like singles and videos and things like that, nothing seemed to go anywhere. Like the wheels were turning, but they were staying in the same place. At that point, where it's like, it seemed like Jim or the rest of us were writing music for other people and not for ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I remember. And Jim had the idea of like, fuck it, let's do an album for us. Let's do what we enjoy and not screw the people, but basically, if they like it, they like it. And that was when he brought the idea to me. I said, yeah, absolutely, man. Let's go for it. It took a while. I remember I was living in Arizona at the time and working. I was working a job. I was working construction because after Inside Out, the band basically fell apart. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Oh yeah. Well, that was, again, this was a product of the 90s where,
Yeah.
you know, two records that we put out that I felt both, if they came out like 2 years beforehand, like Parallels and Symbol Salvation from By Armored Saint.
Yeah.
Those two records came out about a year and a half prior to that. They probably would have been huge, but it came out basically when grunge was taking over and metal was being disbanded and nobody wanted to pay attention or listen or care. And
that's what it seemed like. Yeah. It's what it seemed like. Nobody really cared.
That's what had happened to everybody, not just you guys, obviously.
Yeah. So that, I mean, it was the, you know, a product of I guess somewhat frustration and just the willingness to do something for ourselves and to be happy, and thankfully you guys were still behind us at that time, you know, like, and again, the band fell apart. I think we didn't speak to each other for, I don't know, 2 years or something. It was a weird time. I can't remember how long it was.
It was a while. I mean, again, that was, you know, the mid 90s were, you know, as we've all talked about, very difficult for metal. And, you know, a lot of bands went through the same thing that you guys went through, just like, you know, what is going on here? And it doesn't matter how good the music is, just that there's no, at that point, there was no media, there was nothing that really cared about it. So it kind of went super back underground and reinvented itself, which it needed to do anyway. You know, at the cost, unfortunately, of you know, some great bands, some great albums that didn't get their due.
I think,
although you know, years later they kind of do.
And look at it now. I mean, I think music's doing really great. Honestly, I mean, I'm saying this because I, you know, whatever social media I follow or some friends that I talk to, whatever. But I really don't even listen to the music anymore. I'm sorry. I'm an old guy. Like, I listen to Alice in Chains constantly, which is weird because I didn't listen to them before. and you know, like, but now it seems, you know, all the giant festivals in Europe, man, and even some in America they're just doing great. And there's there's like 80% of the bands I don't even recognize, but that means that's great because they're out there doing something, you know. And
I've talked about it before, and there's I always forget the name of the people that do this, but there's a company that every 6 months does a whole hour long, it's on YouTube, but it's in other places too, and they basically analyze global music sales. And I believe it was the first part of 2025, for the first time ever. So you had the number one music genre was hip hop and R&B. Number two was rock. Number three was pop. Number four was country. Wow. And the rock thing is a lot to do with, you know, a lot of new artists, but a lot of metal artists. You have to, at that point, Ghost had a number one album.
Yeah.
Sleep Token had a number one album. So these newer metal bands that are coming in and kind of shaking things up. So yeah, I mean now, all these years later, I think it's in a really good place. Yeah,
it's good. I mean, I'm happy. I don't really listen to new stuff because I'm old or I'm jaded. I don't know, both.
Probably, yeah. I hear you. But anyway, back to a Pleasant Shade of Grey.
Sorry.
In a way, I remember when, you know, Jim's mentioned that to me. You know, we did a whole episode. That's great. Do whatever you want to do. You know, and I'm glad he went back to, like, let's just make a record. Let's just make a Fates Warning record as a Fates Warning record should be made. Yeah. And when there's no pressure, there's no, you know, we're just going to make the record to make the record. And like you said before, you made it for yourself. So that's 99% of the time the best records, because the bands make it for themselves. And that's ultimately what every band should be doing, and not listening to anybody else or listening to trends or what people think they want to hear. That obviously begat this amazing record. And again, it was a really important record in the grand scheme of metal, because, like I said, it came out in that 97, which was probably the darkest of the darkest days. And it's one whole song into a whole record. I remember when it came out, just the response was insane. Like, people were like, oh my God, this is amazing. And it's different. And it's heavy. Like, all of a sudden, you know, Fates Warning's back and all this crazy stuff. So
a 51-minute long song. Yeah,
I know, right? And there aren't many of that. And the reason why is just hard to keep somebody's attention for that long, especially
exactly.
I mean, these days for sure, especially back then too, though.
No, I'm the same. I'm exactly the same. Yeah, if I make it through a movie now, it's pretty good, you know. But yeah, no, I agree. And when Jim brought it up, I thought it was a great idea, and you guys are behind it. He said, let's go for it. And I remember moments because we recorded at the Carriage House in Connecticut again, which we did so many albums there, and with Roger Probert and Max Norman. I think it was just Roger Probert. No, it was
Terry Brown did this one.
Terry. It was Terry. That's right. Oh my God. I remember a certain moment. It was pretty funny. But yeah, I remember there was just moments in the studio that we had done the demos, and at that point I was doing demos on a 4-track, like what the hell was it called? A 4-track cassette. Those little
Fostex.
Yeah,
was
exactly.
Yeah. Oh wow.
That was my studio, and I just did demos on it, and which I still have the cassettes somewhere. I have no idea where, but I'm sure I do. And then actually being in the studio and doing everything, and the songs coming together was, and being in the control room, it was just like, wow. We're like, to us, like, I always imagine when bands do some albums or songs, do they look at each other in the control room and go, like, this is pretty fucking cool,
Oh, 100%. And I ask this question all the time on this podcast because we're talking about iconic songs, and it invariably, like the response is, were you guys aware that you're making something special in the studio? And I'd say 9 times out of 10 they'll go, yeah, we felt something really good was happening here.
Exactly. And certain songs, some, I mean, they're not, you don't walk in the studio and go, that's okay. You think they're all great, but some at a point you just go, wow, that if a part of your own music moves you, then that to me, it means something. And that's how it was with this album. But yeah, funny, the Terry Brown thing, I forgot about that. Which number it is, because they're numbers, and it's all bass, do 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 do. It's just bass, and I'm singing over it. And Terry's
is that part 7?
Yeah, it's just Joey, just the long bass, and I
Yep.
sing over the bass line. And I was singing it. I probably did it 5 or 6 times, and Jim was gone, so it was just Terry and I. And Terry's like, Ray, I don't think it's working. And I go, no, it's exactly what it is. It's the demo. It's the time. It doesn't seem right to me. Okay, let's try it again. So we worked on it for like 2 hours. It literally, just that bass line is probably a minute, 40 seconds. And he's like, no, I think it's no, Ray. Why don't we call Jim? I said, let's call Jim. And we called Jim, and Jim goes, no, this is exactly right. And Terry just couldn't wrap his head around it. He just couldn't do it. And I'm thinking, this is a guy from Rush. And no offense to him. I mean, I know. It was just a weird part. I think it was in 7, maybe. I don't know what timing it was in.
Yeah, that's the unique part of Fates Warning. Why the band is so amazing, because they're just, you guys do things that nobody else does or nobody else would think about doing, and all the way back into the early days, and that's what makes it work. It's like, that shouldn't work, hoping it does work.
Yeah, and it's me even writing demos, man. I mean, sometimes even with the last album we did, it was like, Jim would say, oh, here's a song, and I'm going, holy fuck, what am I gonna do here? Like, I literally head in hands, like, I have no idea what I'm going to do here. Like, I would lay in bed, like, going, I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. But eventually, and then I get the thought in my head and go, it's going to work out. In the end, I'll figure it out. I just need a couple of days, because, but yeah, with Absog, man, it was one of those things that, everything, it did take a while. But again, Jim had almost everything written, and I was like, they were kind of waiting for me, which was kind of, but that's how I roll.
Little pressure.
But in the end, it was a great album. And then the idea or the thought of, oh, we had a tour. What are we going to do about that? And then the decision was made. We're going to play the entire album.
Was it the first tour you guys did for this? You did the whole record? I can't remember. I thought there was a tour prior, and then the tour after that, you played the whole thing. But
no, what I remember is we just went out.
Did the first time
out?
Yeah,
the first time out, and ended up being one of the most successful tours we'd ever. Tours.
Yeah.
We did multiple tours for that album. I mean, so many. I think we were 3 times, 4 times in Europe, 3 times in America. Like we went round and round with that album. And the fact that people would sit and listen for 51 minutes to one song.
Yeah.
And then, we played another, I don't know, 30 or 40 minutes at the end. We did older stuff, and it was pretty amazing. And that was, I think, a testament to the greatness of our fans. You know what I mean? Like, they really appreciated it. And I don't think anybody left, as far as I could tell.
No, definitely shows I were at nobody left. Yeah, I mean, look, it's an absolutely brilliant piece of music, and certainly, when it comes to Fates Warning and just all the things that Fates Warning is a progressive, metal band with all these different parts to it, because the record is, it's not just all full on, metal stuff. It's like a lot of different, there's jazz parts, there's so many different parts of it that, and again, it's such a weird, because I remember back when when I first heard the record, I was like, oh my God, this thing is insane. Like, I had to listen to it 3 or 4 times just to kind of figure it all out, what was going on. But
3 hours of your day.
That's a good thing, though. That's good.
Yeah.
But again, because it's 97, so there's no pressure. You can kind of do whatever you want. You can make an album that's include whatever weirdness you want to do or however you want to do it, because there's just no expectations at that point. Because again, everybody's kind of like, it's 97. Everybody's, the metal world's struggling, and you've got all this, other weird music coming around, and it's kind of, the grunge thing has even kind of ran its course a little bit. So those late 90s were very odd.
Yeah.
This record kind of. Yeah, but this record came out and kind of ignited a bunch of these metal kids that might have been dormant or weren't paying attention, or even a lot of new fans were all of a sudden like, oh, wow, this is different.
It's different.
This is different. It's really different, and it's really cool in that way too.
Than everything that was out there at that time. And again, like it kind of seemed like everything that was coming out at that time was trying to copy what was there at the time, which people just, it's stagnant. It just gets old. But I mean, it's common, you're Brian Slagel, the trends of the music, what happens, and something popular happens. And I mean, sure, there's bands now that are trying to sound like Sleep Token and everything else, which actually I enjoy the band. I hear a lot of people complain about them, but I actually like them. People
different. Complain about things that are big, so that's just the way it is.
But they're different, and I like that band. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of copycats out there for them as well, and that's just how it is. But I mean, like, for instance, like Merciful Fate, you can't copy. I mean, it's Merciful Fate. So, But yeah, at that time, everyone was sounding like everyone else. And for this album to come out and just be different, I think was the reason why it was so successful, actually.
Well, 100%. 100%. And I also love the fact that, all these years later, because again, it did really well back then, but clearly, like I've mentioned numerous times here, metal was where it was at then. It's nice that, rounding around, that it continues to have that, when we've done reissues, they do really well. And, all a lot of the, big magazines have, said it's one of the greatest progressive metal records of all time, and all these different things.
Taking a chance paid off.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
perfect. But I want to go into your story a little bit, because Fates Warning is one of the very rare bands, and we talk about this a lot, that has had 2 singers that are both really, really great. Very few bands are able to do that. And for those of you who don't know, Fates Warning lineage was the first 3 records came out with John Arch, and they're these again legendary progressive metal albums that came out in the 80s. And then John left the band, and everybody was shocked, of course, and because he was such a big part of their sound,
myself included.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So here comes a very young Ray Alder. Yeah. I mean, I know the story a bit, but I find it fascinating that you've got to come in and try to fill the shoes of this legendary singer. Yeah. How was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, and again, for me, like, it was. Backstory, quickly, was I was living in San Antonio, and there was a DJ in San Antonio called The Godfather, Joe Anthony, and he played. I honestly think he was the best DJ in America. He was playing Triumph before anybody. He was playing Rush on the radio. He was playing. God, it was the funniest thing. But you remember Legs Diamond?
Exactly. He played everything. Legs Diamond was a great band that had a couple of good records. They actually ended up on Metal Blade at one point. But they would, they would tour, and they play, 400 or 500 seat clubs. They'd go to San Antonio, and they play an arena. Because he played them so often. It's insane.
The Sunken Gardens, dude. I saw them, and it was insane. So there was Legs Diamond. So Joe Anthony would play all these bands that I'd never heard of, and it was amazing. He was so cool. And unfortunately, I never got to meet him because our fucking bus broke down. We were supposed to have dinner with him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a whole Fates Warning thing, and we were going to go and have dinner, and fans were going to be there and this whole thing, and our bus broke down, and we couldn't make it, and I never met him, and he died before I could meet him. Anyway, it was horrible because I love that guy beyond anything. Anyway, he used to play Fates Warning when I lived in San Antonio, and I was a kid in a local band. I was at a friend's house once, and he played Guardian, and I was just completely blown away. Like, I've never been blown away in my life, ever. I don't think one song in my life has moved me the way Guardian did that night. I remember the night. I remember sitting in a friend's front yard, like just drinking beer, listening to Joe Anthony, and Guardian came on. And from that point on, I was a Fates Warning fan. I just couldn't believe this guy's voice and the music, and I mean, his voice was soaring, and his melodies, everything was just perfect. And I loved Fates Warning. I became a fan, and I had all their albums at that point. I went and got all their albums and everything. And they went to play San Antonio. And for some reason, I couldn't go to the show. I forget why I couldn't go. And I think the Killer Dwarfs opened for them or something. Or they opened for the Killer Dwarfs. I don't know. Because they were big in San Antonio too, because of Joe Anthony. And I couldn't go to the concert. So the band that I was in at the time was called Cyrus with a Y. That's why. And they invited, I guess the manager of that band at the time was a promoter and did something with Fates Warning, invited them to a barbecue at Cyrus's rehearsal space. And I went there, and I was just like, no way. And the whole band was there, except for John. And so I was like, no way. So somehow, which Jim would never do now, ever, or 20 years ago, they got them to play a song in the rehearsal space. And the singer for Cyrus at the time, actually, I wasn't into Cyrus yet, was singing a Fates Warning song with them. And then Jim at one point looked at me and goes, go ahead, go for it. And I was like, no, absolutely not. That was my first meeting with Fates Warning, right? Was that, and being such a fan of John.
And John was still in the band at that point.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. They just played San Antonio with Guardian, with that album, and Awaken the Guardian. And after that, he left. So that was my first meeting with the band, and disappointed because I didn't meet John. Not long after that, I found out that John left, and I was just like, no way, this band's gonna suck. There's no way anyone could fill his shoes. I was like, it's over. It just doesn't make sense. And so sad about the whole thing. And then the same promoter who invited them to the barbecue, Jim had reached out, the Fates Warning guys had reached out to people they had met on the tours, I guess, to see if they knew any singers. And the guy at the time, his name was John, I think, said, Fates Warning's looking for a new singer. They sent me a demo for you to sing on because I told them about you and to see if you could be the new singer. And I was like, you got to be fucking shitting me. Really? I go, no, really? And it was funny because I kind of did it behind my band's back. At that point, I was singing with Cyrus. And I kind of did it behind their back. It was just the funniest thing. And I did the demo, which is Quietus from No Exit, and sent that away to Fates Warning, and thinking there's no way they're going to pick me because whatever. I think I was 18 at the time, 19. And they ended up picking another guy named Chris Kronk, also from San Antonio. And I was like, not that disappointed because I was like, there's no way I was going to get it anyway. And just Chris Kronk didn't work out. So they called me and asked, I remember Jim called me on the phone and asked if I was, if I would be willing to go to Connecticut. And I was like, okay. So I flew to Connecticut. This young kid from Texas who had only played in little local bands and going to meet my idols, dude. I can't imagine, imagine you going to meet, I don't know, Iron Maiden to sing for them.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's what it was like for me. I was so nervous and afraid. I'd never left the state of Texas. And and I rehearsed with them and we did a few songs and I got the gig. I remember them telling me we're at a cafe, so you got the gig if you want it. And I was like, oh, Okay. Wow.
Well, how did it feel when you were doing the rehearsal? Did you feel like it went well?
Yeah. I mean, at that point, I was a kid and my voice was, I guess, the best it's ever been compared to now.
Yeah.
But now, I think the rehearsals went well. I knew what we were going to do. And we rehearsed for 2 or 3 days. Yeah, I think they went well. And yeah, I wasn't that surprised, but I was excited when they said you have the gig.
It's kind of similar to Brian Johnson's story with AC/DC, because he's same thing. Like he went, he couldn't believe they were asking him to do it. And he went down and rehearsed and said, yeah, we went all right. He didn't really think much of it. And then all of a sudden, like, hey, the gig's yours if you want. He's like, oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I read that. So I heard about it. Something I've been playing pool or something. I don't remember the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the whole deal. But then, in the back of my mind, I was thinking the whole John thing, like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? So what I ended up doing was singing as high as I possibly fucking could on No Exit, thinking that that's what I was supposed to do, because, John's voice was really high and I'm thinking, oh, that's what they want. And, so yeah, that was a mistake looking back now. Not being able to reach that shit,
but it kind of makes sense though, because that's like it's a great record, obviously, but it was
a style at the time. It really was.
But it's a bit of a transition record, because your first record with you, and obviously it went really well, and everybody loved the record. It was really cool, but it was like I said, kind of transitioning. So it still had that feel of early Fates Warning, but it's kind of transitioning to what Fates would really become, which was a much more I don't want to say sophisticated, but sophisticated kind of progressive metal band, maybe a little bit different.
It was still heavy, because I remember when I first started hearing the music, and we went into the studio. I remember I ended up living in Connecticut with Frank, I think. I can't remember.
I'm sorry, by the way.
Connecticut.
That part of Connecticut.
Yeah. Well, sorry, Connecticut people. I think I only had 3 weeks or something like that to write all my parts. And like a week in the studio, I think, or something like that. It was really fast.
It was fast, yeah.
But I remember all the music was like, oh my God, this doesn't sound like Awaken the Guardian, or it doesn't sound like The Apparition. But I liked it. Like you said, it was a more modern sound, I guess. I don't know how to really, like you said, a sophisticated modern.
Well, they had switched, like, I produced the first 3, and those 3 were, I'm not, a real producer. So it was just kind of like the band sound. And this time, you got
very raw.
Yeah, very raw, which worked, and it was great. But this time you had a real producer and a really nice studio. So I think that just that, and the band getting older, made it a little bit more of a mature record in terms of the musical part of it, maybe.
I think after 4 albums, yeah, and then there was a more of a progressive sort of style coming on. I think that's at that point where they started, with the Odd Times and things like that. So and for me at that time, being a kid, I was like, what do you mean 7/4? I don't understand what that means. I don't know. I liked AC/DC and Judas Priest, and
Yeah, of course.
So, but yeah, in the end, the album did great, and I remember being really worried again about playing live. Like, how are people going to perceive it? How am I going to be received in live shows?
That's one thing that I think a lot of people really agree upon, is looking. John Arch is a legendary, absolutely phenomenal singer, but even he will admit he's not the most engaging frontman, which is one of the reasons why he left, was he was never really comfortable on stage, where you are very comfortable on stage and come off with a very, super comfortable and friendly sort of attitude. And I remember
too comfortable sometimes.
Yeah. But I remember those early shows, going to a lot of those early shows and, talking to kids, before and after, and they were all like, oh, my Ray was so great on stage. It's like really cool. And you were the perfect guy to be in there, not just for the vocal part of it, but also just on stage and kind of, your stage presence and, the whole thing. I think people could really feel like, hey, this guy's happy to be up there. He's a fan and, all that stuff. So
absolutely. It's the best part. To me, I mean, yeah, like there's, the writing the music, yeah, it's interesting. And then it is, I don't know, I would never say the word fun, because it's not really fun. But for me, I got into music to play live. That's what I loved about it, I got cover bands, and that's what I did. I loved being on stage. And with Fates Warning, man, I can't even tell you, Brian, like the comfort zone that I'm in with those guys. Like, I've played a few shows without them behind me, without, Jim, Frank, Bobby, Bones, all the other Zonder behind me. And I get fucking nervous. I did a solo concert in Prague Power a couple of years ago. And dude, I've never been so nervous in my life.
Wow.
I've never been so nervous in my life. And it just, playing with those guys, it's just like, I don't know, just going to a family dinner, and
Yeah. Well, yeah, so the comfort level there after all those years, of course.
Yeah. And, and with, Bobby behind us, you just know the band is going to function. We're going to fire on all 8 cylinders. It's just how it's going to be. If someone messes up, you keep going, it just, which rarely happens, but it did.
And talking about Bobby Jarbonzak. Let me screw that up. Jarzambek. Yeah. See, I told you I screwed that up.
You always have problems.
I know.
With that name.
I always
It's
do that.
funny thing.
But anyway, he's
Jarzambek.
George Strait's drummer now, playing stadiums all over the world. It's insane.
He is living the dream. He is absolutely living the dream. I don't know if you knew this about Bobby, but he's always been a country music fan. Like in his off time with Fates Warning, he was in a country band in San Antonio, and they would just play country gigs on the weekends.
He's from Texas, so
yeah, we're from the same city, San Antonio.
Yeah.
And he got the gig, I guess, to play a couple of shows with him or something, and ended up being his full-time drummer. And I think it was 2 years ago that George Strait did the largest single stadium show,
something like that. I think Luke Combs has eclipsed that now, but
really,
yeah,
it was like 2 years ago or something.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago. I think Luke Combs somebody mentioned that to me, but anyway, we won't talk about
it's crazy,
country, but it's great for him. So now, when you look back on a pleasant shade of gray, what are your feelings about the album and how it came out, the reception, and all that good stuff?
We didn't know what was going to happen, and you guys again were behind us 100%, which was great, which gave us the confidence to keep going and just do an album for ourselves, and we were happy with it. Like, again, in the studio, those moments where you're just going, I love this. This is amazing for us. Let's see what happens. And then the tours, it was great. And people ask me to this day, Brian, people ask, if I do interviews or whatever, they say, what's the favorite album you guys ever did? And immediately it's Absog, always. And I think it's the same with Jim. It's just because it was an album for us, and it met success that beyond what we would expect. So
yeah, and it's such a groundbreaking record too. I mean, like I said, nobody, especially at that time, to be like, okay, we're gonna do an album of one song. Like, what the hell are you doing? But clearly it worked, and you look back on it now, it's like revolutionary because there were a few, before that. I mean, obviously Jethro Tull had "Thick as a Brick," and there are a few of those things before that. But since then, it's become, not the norm, but people will do that. And I know that a lot of bands were really influenced by, like, wow, that's so amazing. They did, an album on one song, and it was so great.
Jim and we talk all the time, obviously, since we've been working on other stuff, that, discussing maybe we do some live shows again one day. And the idea perhaps has come up a few times. It gets to a certain point, and then it all seems to fall apart. Not a week ago, we were talking about doing this a show here in Europe.
Yeah.
And we started messing with logistics and everything, and then we were like getting right there, and then we just said, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, I think the longer you stay away, the more people will want to see you, and especially with all these big, with all these huge shows and stuff, they're just kind of running out of like, well, who would be interesting? Oh, well, we haven't seen Fates Warning for a minute, so that would make sense. It just happens to a lot of bands like that, where you think, you're never going to come back again. Then all of a sudden somebody goes, well, this is new. We need something new and different, and here's one. So let's just throw a bunch of money at it.
I'll say never, because I mean, again, Jim and I talk all the time, and the idea pops up from time to time, and it's not like we're both completely against it. It's just need to work the logistics out correctly and
just, hey, promoters out there, here's a band that you should throw a lot. You're throwing a lot. You're throwing a lot of money at a lot of different bands. Throw some money at Fate's Warning so that we can get to see it again, please.
Yeah, I mean, and also, like, you know, we did the Parallels reunion tour a while. It was a long time ago, 2016, maybe. It was a long time ago, and that was fun. And we only
2016,
did 8 shows.
somewhere around there.
Huge success for us. It was such a great tour, and we thought about an Absog, another reunion, or not, maybe not a reunion, but doing the whole album sometime. So
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if we can work something.
Like I said, if anybody's out there listening, let's make this happen.
Yeah.
I'm not a promoter, otherwise I would do it. That's not my
Make
job.
it worthwhile for everybody, I guess. No.
Well, dude, thanks so much for doing this. Really great to see you again. And yeah, that was awesome.
Absolutely. You too, man. Always.
All right, that was a fun one. Talking about this record, which I love so much. And as I've mentioned many times on the podcast, came out at a very important time for metal when it wasn't really a lot going on. And this record came out being something completely different and really kind of did super well for Fate's Warning and their fan base and progressive metal in general and metal overall, I think. So always fun to catch up with my good friend, Mr. Ray Alder, Mr. Bill Metoyer as well, who's always fun to talk to. And Martin Popoff is amazing as always. Lizzie Borden for our theme song. And thanks big time to our producer, Mr. Christian Blatt. If it's not for him, this podcast doesn't exist. So thanks, and we'll see you guys next episode. 100